Globalization can be defined as the process of international integration arising from the interchange of worldviews, products, ideas, and various other aspects of the culture. One such aspect of culture would be fashion. Style and trends are different in all different countries around the world. What is popular in one country may be thought to be unattractive on the other side of the globe. Fast fashion is one area greatly influenced by globalization. Stores such as Forever 21 are not made to sell high-quality clothing or be used for long-term use. Fast fashion type stores are always changing their merchandise in order to keep up with the latest trends. Media is another factor that globally affects the fashion industry. The fashion in magazines, music videos, on the internet, and on television can quickly travel around the world. The media often greatly influences a consumer in what they should buy. This means that when the media finds a trend and reports on it, everyone in the world can now find this trend and go buy these clothes to stay in fashion. Globalization can also affect the way goods are produced and distributed. Because brands must produce their clothing for a global audience, it is important for them to be present all over the world. Globalization allows brands to move their production to developing countries. This not only lets them be present in different markets, but there is also a lower cost of labor in these developing countries. The fashion industry is greatly affected by globalization, and it is important that consumers, merchandisers, and producers know why. In order for a business to survive, globalization must be added into their business plan. It will help them grow, produce clothing at lower costs, and reach new consumers in other markets. Through globalization, we are further integrating aspects of other cultures, industries, products, and ideas amongst our own. As consumers ever evolving in the way we purchase goods, especially clothing, we must take note on the methods of manufacturing and consumption. We must analyze the fast fashion as opposed to artisan-made clothing, internationally produced as opposed to American-made clothing, and trendy clothing versus classic trends. Though trendy fast fashion produced for lower labor cost is underprivileged countries, is an easily accessible piece of clothing, it is one that should be billed as unethical. Yes, there are higher demands for the latest trends, but we should produce these stateside with fair wages in mind. With pledges from companies such as H&M and American Apparel to keep wages fair, we must call to arms all retailers to match this policy. The fashion industry is affected in a multitude of ways, and it is up to the consumers to hold the fashion industry accountable for its globalization in an ethical way. We asked some Auburn students about globalization in the fashion industry and their knowledge and thoughts on the subject.
Globalization is when you take something worldwide.
Globalization is just everyone in the world working together to put out goods faster or more efficiently and to share ideas to make, I guess, things better all around.
No, I definitely think it's a good thing because all the countries can work together to help each other with their economies and to make everything run more smoothly.
I don't really have an opinion on it. I think it could have both positives and negative effects. But by opening it up, you can obviously bring in different types of fashion that maybe wouldn't be in our culture, and open up, the fashion industry to a more worldwide perspective instead of just where it is, like what country you're in now.
I prefer to have my clothes made internationally because my experience with American-made brands has not been a good one.
When I'm buying clothes, I don't really pick something because, it's made out of the country. Most of my clothes are made out of the country. But when something is made in America, that definitely catches my eye because there's not many clothes that are made in America.
If I advertised that I'd be making clothes in the United States, and I'd obviously make them in the United States, but to make them more cheap than I would, have them done internationally.
I would try to have my clothing made here in the U.S. I really think people appreciate and enjoy product that is, locally made. They're supporting people that may live next door rather than someone that they don't know.
I have no idea what that means.
Well, I don't know what fast fashion means.
Yes.
What is your opinion on that?
I think that maybe it's not the smartest thing for consumers, but it's definitely very smart for the companies who are producing it. And I think it's also, in moderation, it can be good for the consumers because it lets you have cute, trendy clothes, but you don't have to go out and spend a fortune. And even though the clothes might not last that long, the trends don't really last that long either. So.
I tend to spend more money on my clothes because I like the classic styles and I much rather have good quality clothing.
I usually buy cheaper, trendier clothing just to keep up with the styles.
I think it mostly comes from my family, my sisters, the kinds of things they wear, the kinds of things my mom wears, some things that are in the magazines or on TV, but mostly from my friends' family, people I personally see.
I think what's like comfortable and what obviously you see what other people are wearing and like celebrities and people of interest. So
When speaking about globalization, it is not to be looked at from just a transnational perspective. Business is affected by globalization on a local, national, and global scale. Each perspective must change their business accordingly to stay successful in our current market. Let's look at a local perspective first. Many people can say that they do not shop at local businesses for clothing. Depending on your location, boutiques may not even be an option for shopping. Local brands that are driven by creators that produce for local audiences barely exist anymore. Brands now must have to produce for a global audience and need to carry trendier, high fashion pieces rather than classic styles to keep up with the globalization trends. To avoid struggling, local shops do have some options. For example, the company can just ride with globalization and keep up to date on trends. Of course, the business would have to lower costs substantially, which may take away from the local feel. However, there are also marketing approaches to use to stay successful. One approach could be changing your target market. With differing fashion theories such as trickle-down, trickle-across, and trickle-up theory, fashion is inspired from many different sources. A local shop could possibly carry clothes to appeal to a certain theory, thus targeting these individuals who wear that certain type of fashion. For example, if a company focuses on just the trickle-down theory, they would still carry trendy items such as skinny jeans. This approach would still have the trends, yet less time and cost would be invested. However, the success of a strategy like this is going to be up to the customers. At a national level, to keep up with frequently changing brands such as the Gap or Ann Taylor Loft must lower their costs. People do not want mid-priced clothes anymore. They want cheap clothes that are trendy, and lowering costs is essential. If you look at the tag inside of your shirt, it is most likely going to say made in China or another country besides the US. There are two reasons for this: cheap labor and cheap production costs. Bangladesh, for example, is one country that national level brands are turning to. Bangladesh now generates close to $20 billion a year in exports. According to the International Labor Right Forum, ILRF, more than 25% of these garments go to stores in the US and close to 60% are shipped to Europe. There are now 500 textile factories in Bangladesh which employ 4 million people. Bangladesh is second to China when it comes to manufacturing. While this makes national level brands able to give consumers great deals, both companies and consumers must be aware of the unfair working conditions, including those for children, which are likely to occur in these countries. The global level may be the most important perspective for fashion companies. Now, the best thing a company can do is to go global. Globalization makes it easy for people from different countries to keep up with trends around the world, and consumers demand those trends. it is likely that your favorite brand is owned by another country. For example, H&M and Forever 21, both European brands, are thriving for Americans who love fast fashion. They can keep up with the current trends while spending low prices for clothing. In the past, European brands were considered luxury, while Louis Vuitton, Chanel, and Gucci have maintained a strong presence in the US. It's the lower-priced brands that have experienced the strongest recent growth. Companies must consider lowering their costs and making their brand go global. Expanding to different companies opens up new markets. However, it may take a lot of research and time before expanding in order to give the brand the best possible chance for success. Globalization has affected the fashion industry extensively, whether it be low production costs in different countries, fast fashion trends. Globalization affects fashion on local, national, and global levels and will continue to do so.